both men and women. As a parent, in terms of how we bring up our children, the values that we place on them, and that's exactly what today is about. It's about champion people build champion nations. And Ashraf Garda is going to take us through that process here today. I'll be hosting it for you, presented, of course, by Ashraf Garda, who's the chief driver of Champion South Africa. So just to take you through the process of how we're going to be running today. Some of you might have been through these slides already, but just today it is so relevant in terms of how leaders in the restoration actually works in terms of building champion nations, because I strongly believe that we cannot become ourselves. We need to go out of our way to support each other. We need to be mirrored, emulated, and celebrated as who we are truly does make a difference. Become purposefully conscious. That's what I say. Is, are we living our life purposefully, consciously? And if we aren't doing that, then we need to rethink what kind of society are we bringing ourselves and our children into. Are we just running day to day, or are we moving on from being conscious about what we actually do? So just a little bit about Orbrix. Those of you who've been through this, I'm not going to take you through a lot of it, but those are our academies on the screen as you can see them. And also part of those academies, we also have our climate surveys and our coaching and mentoring. So I strongly don't believe that training and development is a pill, which is going to fix everything. And this is why we go out and we do a climate survey to see exactly where the issues are. Is training a supportive program? Is coaching, is mentoring, what actually needs to be done? And we have special tools to be able to measure that, to be able to assist you in all of those areas in our academy. However, since lockdown has taken place, it has been difficult to function in what we call a norm. So what we've actually decided, and together with my team, Armo, Lerato, Joanne, Ahmed, many of the other guys that we've been working with from a support perspective in the actual UAE region, we've decided to create our own brand, which is called Virtually Live by Orbrix, where we will go virtually live to be able to run some complimentary sessions, run some of our paid programs, which has to run in order to support those people who still require their certification. And it's all about working smartly and more responsibly. So we launched on Virtually Live our virtual workshops. We've launched virtual panel discussions. Many of you were part of that on Saturday. And you'll find that next week, Saturday, we have another session coming up purely in terms of leadership through COVID-19. And then, of course, watch out for our live virtual summit that will be taking place in the first week of June, where we get together the leaders of the restoration work, talking about how and what we have implemented in different parts of the world. So you can have leaders from all over the world talking about what we've done, what we've learned from COVID-19, and how we can apply that in crisis management throughout. So our global summit is going to be evolved particularly around crisis management and incident commands. So please have a look at that and watch out for that as well. So just some housekeeping in the room, ladies and gents, before we actually get into our session. Toggle your videos on and off as you would like. Please ask lots of questions. Please collaborate. And we've got some amazing people here, I know, who's always been participative in the communication with us. So please, we appeal to you is to make this as integrative as possible. Ashraf is going to handle those questions. I will check and see if there are any questions in the chat. But if you feel you want to unmute yourself, please raise your hand and we'll be more than happy to be able to unmute you and take you and you can voice your opinion of what it is. And more, so let's have some fun while we're moving along. So ladies and gents, I'd like to now introduce you to our speaker today as part of our virtual workshops. So as I've mentioned, we've run the panel discussions, and now we're running in intricate workshops specific on specific topics with one particular expert. Today, our expert is Mr. Ashraf Garda, who is also the chief driver of Champion South Africa. He's the host of the Ashraf Garda Show podcast, YouTube and Champion South Africa podcast. I recommend you all follow him so that you can watch those podcasts as well. He's a professional speaker, an MC, a conference moderator, and he's also a media trainer. So watch out for the first week of June after Ramadan, where we'll be looking at the 30 steps or things that you need to consider before you go in front of a media, whether it's writing articles, whether it's been in front of the news reporter, whether it's been on TV, whether it's been on radio. What are the things that you need to consider before you go up front on screen? So those are things that Ashraf Garda will take you through. But today he's here, ladies and gents, to talk to us about champion people build champion nations. So without further ado, Ashraf, it's all over to you.
Well, Hawa, thank you for your time. A good morning. Assalamu alaikum. Salbona to some of the people from South Africa as well, or Sandi Bunani in a little sense. So good to connect with all of you. I'll give you that thumbs up right now. Trust me to compete with Mother's Day, but maybe the point that, you know, mothers are in fact the people literally that actually gives birth to nations. So maybe it's appropriate that we do just that anyway, right? One quick word about Hawa for those that don't know her, which may well be a minority. We met 2 years ago, I think it is. And all I want to just say is this: I didn't know Hawa at all 2 years ago, but I would suggest that if you have the chance, and you know she's South African but living in the UAE and well, both places in fact where there's no lockdown, if there's a chance when she gets to certainly to South Africa and for the others to connect with her directly, I would suggest strongly that you make the point to do just that, because I've had the privilege of meeting lots of people around South Africa, around the world, who have the drive that is necessary to build community and country, and I have no doubt that Hawa is certainly that. So to pick up on that phrase of champion people build champion nations, the obvious question is like, who are these champion people? We will talk about that later on, but I'll start with this one here, that one of the champion people around in our communities, in our tribes, is Hawa. So there we are. I have no doubt about that. Okay, so pay attention to
Thank you, Ashraf.
There's a lot that you can learn from it. Okay, all right. Let's get cracking. There'll be questions later on, and I want you guys to engage because we can argue certain points and certain action plans around it. But let me start with this. Okay, so you can see I have a flag of a country in the background. It's very deliberate because I have a dream. You've probably heard that before. I have a dream, and in my dream, one day the Secretary General of the United Nations will be standing up in front of a massive crowd of people, and he or she they would have a trophy in their hands, and the trophy would be sort of decked with the ribbons of a certain country and the flag of that country, and that country and that flag and those ribbons and this trophy that would be delivered would be to my country, to South Africa. That's my dream, and that trophy would stand for what he would be or she would be regarding or rating as the champion nation in the world. So that's my dream. It's profound. It's something that I can visualize, and hopefully something you can visualize right now to say, is that a dream that you'd want to happen? And it is that particular dream that therefore harnesses that what I do, that what I try to do, the people I meet, the people I connect with, the platforms that I come on like this one year, because I realize that for me to achieve that dream, a couple of things needs to happen. But the one thing that's obvious is for South Africa to become a champion nation. I'm talking about my country for starters. For South Africa to become a champion nation, it would mean what? It would mean that we're a happy nation. Everybody's just on the ball, isn't it? It would mean we're a healthy nation. It would mean public health there would be superb. It would mean our education would be top notch and innovative and absolutely enhances the drive of individuals. And being Mother's Day today, many of you watching would have children, and you desperately want your children to be at the top of their game to achieve their maximum potential. So it would mean that It would mean the GDP of my country would be absolutely in the stratosphere. It would mean that we would have the type of leadership in my country that we have or we don't have now, but it will be multiplied in abundance. It would mean that not just the leadership of a country as in government, but every one of us would have a culture of committed leadership to drive ourselves and the people that we would represent. It would mean my country would be safe. We would be crime-free or limited crime. It would mean citizens are generally much safer. It would mean that we have freedom of expression. It would mean that we are a tolerant nation. It would mean that we allow different religious faiths to express themselves. It would also mean that gender-based violence would be eliminated. It would also mean that we have this, each one of us would have an intense desire to serve. It would mean that social justice would be absolutely uppermost in the ethos of my country, of a country worthy of being called a champion nation, right? And very importantly, as I run through all those things, it would mean that it's a country that you would want to be a part of, that the whole world would say, that's the standard by which we live. Because right now in the various media platforms that I've been involved in, don't you get irritated, because I do, when people say something works, and you say, how do you know it works? And you just know the answer. They're going to say, well, it's been tested in the States. So I get irritated when I hear that. I want someone to say, you know what, this works because it's been tested in South Africa, and South Africa is the standard bearer of excellence in the world. Now, we know that's not the case right now, okay? But that's my dream, and that's why I want to move my country or my nation to a champion nation. But the reality is this: can I do that on my own? Clearly not. Can I do it with 5 people, maybe just my closest 5 family and friends? That cannot happen. Can I do it with 100 people? Not even. 1,000 people? Certainly not either, isn't it? Let me give you an example. For those of you who follow sport, if you're playing cricket and soccer, it's an 11-man game. If you're playing rugby, it's 15, right? And even in a 15-man game, do you think that it's only the 15 people that wins a trophy on the field of play that actually wins it? Do you think it's only the 11 playing cricket or the 11 playing football that does that? I don't think so. They may be the physical manifestation at the very end that does just that. But let's take and Hawa's currently speaking from the UAE, which is not a very large country in terms of population. I mean, South Africa's got 60 million people. America's like 250,000, maybe even bigger, right? Places like India, like 1 billion, China even more so. That the 11 or 15 people that represents them on the field of play in whichever game they play, a game of business or a game of sport, is in fact the reflection of 60, in South Africa's case, 60 million people at grassroots that has excellence in their DNA, that creates a champion culture and a champion mind and a champion mindset that drives from 60 million people, that broad 60 million, narrows it down to the 11 people finally, that effectively fronts up the aspirations of a nation. So when you have this culture of excellence in broad speak, it then reflects in a culture of excellence in narrow speak, but the vision is broad. So I accept the fact that for me to achieve my dream, in fact, I need 60 million people in my country to embrace a culture of excellence, a culture of vying in championness, so that we can deliver champions in our field. And that therefore brings me to the Champion South Africa movement that I'm very much a part of, okay, or that I co-founded, in fact, with my son Zaid, on basis of chats that we had, okay. So Champion South Africa is an organization that is committed, in my case, to moving South Africa from a mid-table nation to a champion nation. Because although I have this dream and this vision of of this champion nation. I accept the reality that we're not there at the moment. We're far from there. In fact, often enough, we're tottering on the brink of relegation as a country. But I want to move the country from a mid-table nation to a champion nation. That's one. And how do we do that? We're doing that by identifying people, identifying champion people in our country in all walks of life. We then want to amplify the doings of those champion people, their habits, their mindsets. What is it they do, the decisions they take, right? And we identify and amplify them and then we also make champion connections by getting one champion to meet other champions, to meet other champions, in the hope that you're creating a not so much a cascading effect, a positive domino effect of one inspiring and touching another human being in the same way. And it's a horrible example, but the COVID-19 virus now has this habit of affecting other people, infecting and affecting. But in a positive sense, one can do the same thing. One can infect other people so that they start buying into your vision. So we do that. We make these champion connections in the hope of creating more champions and then getting to a level, because being South African, one Mandela is not going to make us a champion nation. It didn't, okay? Being say Dubai, for example, a Sheikh Maktoum may be enough to inspire the UAE, but is it enough? You need a culture of championness amongst people to do just that as well. So the plan for us is to create a movement of people who are locked in to the same mentality that I am talking about right now. And you know, the number is not a perfect science, okay? But let's just say if we have 60 million South Africans, if we can get to 1 million people who are buying into the same vision of a champion nation, and that it requires champion people to build a champion nation, then perhaps at that stage we can start moving up a notch as a country. If we don't do that, we will never do so. So I want you to think about this with that in mind, okay? About 2 years ago, there was a brand, because we call everything a brand nowadays, that were competing, and I'm just using a sporting example for now. They were competing in rugby, and they were absolutely thrashed. Well, in fact, by two countries, by New Zealand and by Japan, right? 2 years ago. And what happened to that group of people? They came together, humiliated, absolutely humiliated from where they are, and got their heads together, created a new team of people, a new leadership of people with a new ethos, a new mentality, a new commitment under this hashtag called, you know, Stronger Together, and committing themselves to doing just that. And what happens 1 year down the line? They come back and they win a Rugby World Cup. The same team that gets thrashed a year before and loses to Japan even before that goes out and becomes the very best in class, the very best in the world. So that's scenario one. That's the Springboks, led by two people, Siya Kolisi and Rassie Erasmus. Let me give you a business example. Steve Jobs. Everybody knows who Steve Jobs is. One of the founders of Apple was there, effectively was shunted out of Apple, set up another company. Apple themselves in serious trouble, needed help. What did they do? They get back the person who was a former owner. They kicked him out. They got him back on. He got them back on track. We know he's passed on, but at that time, he delivered Apple to be the #1 brand in the world. Example 3, and it's for those in the UAE right now, you can relate to it, Sheikh Maktoum and the people with him. What did they do? A fishing village in Dubai, a fishing village, in effect a non-entity. And because of vision, because somebody believed they can play above the level they're playing right now, and they sold that to a group of other people, and then further groups of other people, and more multiplied. They changed not just the destiny of that fishing village, not just the destiny of Dubai and the UAE, not just the Middle East, but the entire world, okay? Then there's the Kodak moment. We know that, not just from the photograph, but the decisions Kodak took about not moving forward and saying, but we are the best. Why should we want to innovate? Why should we want to even change things when everybody follows us? And the rest is history. Within a short period of digital photography, Kodak, as you know, went out of business. What do all these things have in common? Kodak, Apple, the Springbok rugby team, Sheikh Maktoum from Dubai and the UAE. What do they all have in common? they all have in common decisions taken by people. And that is why when we speak often enough about building a champion nation, if there's something I need to emphasize, it is that it is champion people that build champion nations. So in a case like this, the examples of the Springboks and Apple and Dubai, and then when Kodak didn't get it right, it was the decisions taken by people that has an impact on let's call it their tribe, their direct influence, their families, their communities, their organizations, their businesses, their schools, and their country. And if you look at the history of the world, okay, and I'll throw in many countries because civilizations have risen and civilizations have fallen. From the great civilization of Mali, Timbuktu, we all know that, to Great Britain and the Ashanti tribes of Ghana, to the Aztecs in South America, to the Zulu kingdom in South Africa, to the Ottoman Empire and the Roman Empire and the Greek Empire, I can go on, and the Islamic Empire that was set up from Medina with the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and Russia when it was the Soviet Union, to the USA then, China then, China now, Dubai, UAE, I'm looking at all that. All of those examples, they reflect nations or nation states that at some stage rose to the very highest achievement in the world and at some stage also fell off the pedestal. So nothing is ever permanent. So when we talk about a need to drive a champion nation and to keep it there, it has to be fueled and galvanized by people all of the time. That is why you can get a Great Britain that is not so great any longer. That is why you can get the Mali kingdom that is just called Timbuktu. And we talk about Timbuktu, the reflection is it's somewhere in the middle of nowhere. It's like a lost cause, but it certainly was not the case. That is why many other great empires like the Romans are more about ruins than actually about greatness, because of a sense of let's revel in the past and past glories, and we think what they did before is enough. It never is enough. So people determines what happens to countries, and you can cascade that down to organizations as well. So I'll emphasize this point, and I want you to think about it. Champion people build champion people. So if you are wanting to be considered one of the champion people in your community or your country, the first thing you need to be doing is, can you replicate who you are? Can you build yourself into another person? Can champion people build more champion people? And then champion people build champion organizations, champion people then build champion governments, and then champion people then finally builds champion nations. And Hawa, if you've got that slide up there, you may have it already, just show that, because I'd love people to take a picture of that slide, like a screen grab as well, wherever they are, because that's the type of thing you want them to share. And that must, I want it to inspire you as you're watching this, to say, it's true, you know, champion people build champion nations, not geography. The geographic position of a country is an advantage, but it's not enough. The climate is an advantage. It's not enough. There are countries that with poor geography that can succeed. There are countries with great climate that sometimes fails. There are countries with no mineral wealth, like Singapore, that can succeed. Why would that be the case? Because the significant difference is the ability to galvanize that group of people into a bigger, larger cause in spite of their disadvantages. So do take a picture or a screen grab of that slide and keep it with you, because it's really important. And you may think about, like, so what, in fact, is a champion? Well, you know, champions are pioneers. Champions are brave. Champions disrupt the status quo. Champions want to improve the lives of themselves, and they want to improve the lives of their family and their friends and their country. Champions have champion minds. They are connected to thinking things can happen, as opposed to things can't happen. They think solutions, they think innovation, they think impact. They are able to impact on people all the time. They make strong champion connections. Once they have what they have this ability to borrow a phrase I heard the other day, to bring a smile to people that they're in contact with, because they inspire greatness. It's not about an autograph, it's about inspiring absolute greatness. And then champions make interventions that by their connecting to people, and maybe myself meeting up with Hawa is a good example of that. We met quite by chance when she invited my wife to an event. Okay, not me. I was the other, right? Having said that, it still worked out well enough that those champion connections we made and the interventions we made in many ways propels us on a path, on a journey to be champions. So whereas myself and Hawa then gets connected without even signing up to a contract, we now know we up our game. But isn't that what you can do? You can meet people that are champions in their spaces, make those champion connections, derive the benefit of the champion interventions that we talk about, so that you yourselves will find that naturally you are better at what you do, and naturally you'll help other people become better, because that's the point. The true strength of a leader is to grow other leaders. A leader has many functions, but if a leader can't grow other leaders, they're not quite the leaders that you think they are. In the same way, champion people needs to build other champion people. And then champions have to be champions in their families as well. You, at some stage, need to be a rallying cause in your own. So there's a challenge to you and I as we talk to say, can we be champions in our families? But very importantly, you need to develop a champion DNA. And I think this is lacking certainly in my country, and could well be lacking in many countries of many other people connected to as part of the audience today. So I may not even have the answers today, but it doesn't mean I can't ask the questions, because that's a starting point. Sometimes just a good question is the beginning of it all, that first step in this long journey to championhood, which is, what is it that sets a country apart where they tolerate mediocrity versus another country that does not tolerate mediocrity and is committed to being champion? So I gave the example of Singapore. I gave the example, I should give you an example of South Korea. South Korea and North Korea, effectively one people, a homogenous group of people, followed two different paths. One, South Korea decided in the 60s, very much like Singapore, and the fact that they're close to each other geographically is something as well, that they will emphasize technological development and mathematics as part of their DNA. It became ingrained in their DNA. And yes, it's taken like 30 years, so 3 decades and more to start seeing the difference. But today, the notion that you can ignore South Korea when we're talking about technological advancement can just be thrown out completely. Even in the field of COVID-19, we've seen the type of advances that they've made compared to other countries, okay? So that's a very important issue. What is it that you need to be doing? And I'm talking to you directly on this case here, to be doing to develop not just the DNA of your country, but the DNA of your family right now. Because as I'm talking to you, many people, including myself, we're feeling the economic fallout of COVID-19 that's forcing us to rethink everything we do. So it's one thing expecting your country to do it for you. I don't want to sound like JFK, okay? But it's another thing saying, hold it, it has to start in your family. Can you be having the conversation with your family right now and saying, hey, we're going to change in spite of the adversity around us. We're going to change the DNA of us to think solutions in all that we can do. If you're going to say yes to that, then you need to like message even with and say, yes, I'm going to do that, because you need to be doing that, okay? And then part of the DNA is you need to be a champion for good. It's one thing, you know, this, although we use the word champion, champion's not about winners and losers. It's about being good for yourself and your family and your country, but also being good for other people. So when I gave an example up front, for those who joined in late, about me wanting the United Nations Secretary General to deliver a trophy to my country to say, yes, South Africa, you're the champion nation of the world. It is not suggesting that we must be the best, forget the rest. You've heard that, isn't it? I'm the best, forget the rest. No, it isn't. For South Africa, in fact, to be a champion nation, A key part of being a champion nation is to collaborate with other nations in ensuring that they become champions as well. And you must then apply that to yourself. You can't be a champion in your space and then say, I'll do that by eliminating the opposition, by wiping them all out. Even a boxer, goodness, needs an opponent to show up his or her game, isn't it? A boxer needs someone, a cricketer needs a bowler to bowl to that cricketer to be able to hit a four. So the need of collaboration, even in what is seemed like adversity, is really important. So I'm suggesting champion nation is not exclusive. It's not closing off borders to say, don't come, we don't want to touch you. It is about being good for yourself as a country and then being good for those, your neighboring countries and so on. And applying that to yourself, good for you, good for people in your industry, good for your community. If you are not able to assist other people, then you'll just be good for yourself. But to go back to the example I gave, since when does one good footballer win a football World Cup? It doesn't happen. Since when does one Mandela become a champion nation? Or one Sheikh Maktoum, for example, can deliver the aspirations of Dubai? He can inspire it, but it does need other people to play up and up their games, okay? So this thing about being a champion for good, but a champion for other people's good as well is particularly important. And then you need to be able to develop a unique selling point. So like a country, and I don't know, if I think about Brazil right now, I think about the samba, isn't it? Right, wrong? It appears to be part of their culture. If I think about Germany, I think of German precision. It still appears to be the case. South Africa, some people say Ubuntu. We won't even debate what that is, although we spoke about it the other day about, I am because you are. And USA, what does it stand for? What does the UAE stand for? What does Germany, I've said so, what does France stand for? Every country stands for something or should stand for something. So the point is, if you don't know, what is it that your country can develop in terms of its USP, its unique selling point that can be marketed, transported, exported to the world to embrace? Because that's when you make yourself relevant. Now that's a country, and as you can see, I interchange often between country and you. But what about you applying the same principle? What is it about you that is unique? What is it about you that represents your own unique selling point as an individual that you can then, yes, like a country, brand, export to other people for other people to buy into you? So one thing is expecting a country to deliver, another thing is expecting you to deliver. And my point to you is like, honestly, you need to do it. It's going to have to be you. It has to be coming to you to say, what is my USP? What is my unique selling point? Because here's the point, okay? Do you ever think about this? A key point of delivering a champion nation is this. It's a key insight for me. It will only happen when you, number one, are successful, when you are the champion in your space, but when you link your success to your country's success. Far too often, people operate in silos. No matter what they do and how successful they really are doing it for themselves. So there is a disjuncture between your aspirations and your country's aspirations. If that happens, it means you're disconnected. That means you're not plugged in to the national ethos, to the DNA, to the USP of your country. So the challenge to you is, can you link your success to your country's success? If you're doing it, thumbs up to you. If you're not doing it, can you start making that link, that everything you do is aligned to your country's success? Because when that happens in abundance, when 1 million people start thinking exactly the same way, well, then you get this curve where the country's success just moves up rather and inspires success upon success upon success. So here's the point, to put it another way. When you win, your country wins. When your country wins, you win. I'll repeat that because it's important for you to understand it. When you win, your country wins. And when your country wins, you win. I promise you, it sounds trivial, but I want you to spend some time thinking about it. If one of the two, you and your country, if one of the two is not winning, it has an impact on everybody else. So you can't have this emperor with no clothes scenario where you think you're the finest in the world and you're wearing nothing. Or you can be the emperor of a country, and in fact, what is happening is that your country, your people are starving. Can you see the connection? It has to be linked. And the same applies to champion you, to champion your organizations. The people in your organization must be winning for your organization to be winning. You can't be winning on your own. Let's talk about the world right now. COVID-19 is a reality, and it's brought with it vulnerability to death, vulnerability to poor public health, vulnerability to public institutions and limitations that we have, the vulnerability of the economies of the world, the issues of massive unemployment. It's frightening all around the world what's happening and what's going to happen. And then poverty. And here's the thing. When people say that the one thing COVID-19 has taught us is that it affects us equally, that's bullshit, honestly. When it comes to the most impoverished people in the world, and South Africa has many of them, many others even in the spaces that you're in right now, they are not affected equally by the health and the economic impact of COVID-19. We are all affected, but they're not affected equally. So to give you an example, there are people today on a Sunday morning where people like me, my biggest concern is whether my Wi-Fi is going to be connected sufficiently for you to watch me and listen to me. There are other people worried about their next meal. And for the middle class, and many of us could well be termed that middle class, their concerns are the impact for the next month. For the poorest of the poor, their concerns are not just the impact of the next day, it's the impact of the very next meal. So it's like immediate. And COVID-19 has shown that all up, right? Because it speaks about the world we live in, and it's sad. It's a world of inequality, of resource exploitation. It's a world of environmental neglect and abuse, a world of a lack of food security. It's been taken for granted, a world of wars and death, and a world of neglect of refugees. It's a world of poverty and extreme starvation, and yes, of human exploitation. But COVID-19 has also thrown up some massive lessons, isn't it? And it's thrown up the lesson of collaboration, because in your community, amongst your family, in your country, with the medical practitioners, with those incredible champions in the front line, there has had to be collaboration to try and thwart the dangers of COVID-19. It's brought that up for countries as well. COVID-19 has also highlighted how vulnerable we all are as human beings. It's also highlighted some outstanding leaders in the world, but it's also highlighted some really poor, neglectful leaders. And then it's highlighted the unknown, because you and I, even now as we talk, you don't quite know what's the new known. We don't know. We are in a state of unknown. So we are vulnerable because we are better when we know the facts. We are vulnerable when we don't. And we are vulnerable. But it has also highlighted the triumph of the human spirit. There are examples all around the world, from China to Italy, to France, to the USA, to South Africa, to parts of the UAE and wherever else, India, everywhere, Pakistan, I can go on, Ghana, Nigeria. In spite of the problems and the vulnerability and the pain and the anxiety around COVID-19, what that means, there are examples of people in the front line. I'm talking about political leaders, I'm talking about organizations, I'm talking about non-profit organizations, I'm talking about medical practitioners, I'm talking about support structures who have come up and they've assisted. And that is the part I want you to focus on. How is it that people can come around and rally under incredible duress and mass mobilize to try and save their country and save their people and save the planet, We can't do that every other time. So long after COVID-19 ends, and I hope it's going to be limited soon, we need to be having this conversation and talking about this reset, and that resets of champion nations cannot be one champion nation better than the other. It has to be a collaboration of nations around the world to truly make this place a better place. Because if COVID-19 has thrown up the vulnerabilities, then COVID-19 must also throw up the possibilities of what's truly possible when we are united behind a single cause. So what about uniting around poverty? What about uniting around racial discrimination, around gender-based violence, around religious discrimination, around exploitation, around economy, all that? And you may think, but it's not my problem. But it is your problem, because when those things are not addressed, it puts you and your family in a state of vulnerability, because it causes societies then to revolt. Think about, if you can't have bread, have cake. Think about what that means and apply that to yourself. So yes, it is very much reset time, isn't it? And as I talk, I want you to think about what makes a champion nation, and who are these champion nations. And I thought I could list them, but I think I'm not going to do that. I'm going to ask you to message me now and say, this is what I think are the qualities of a champion nation, like a tick, check, check, check. This is what a champion nation should possess. And then you can tell me, does your country have those qualities and what's missing? And then maybe you can list other countries as well. But also go back to the past. List countries that you think are worthy of being called champion nations. It's an exercise I want you to think about, because we need to exercise our mind to these things. I want you to be engaging. And then this is the important point for you also. Is your nation a just nation? Does it throw up social justice? Can a nation become a champion nation if it is not just? Now, I used the Great Britain as an example earlier on, deliberately so. On the one hand, it ruled over the dominion, like 20% of the earth, 1/5 of the world's surface, but they also did it by massive colonization and subjugation of people, and then exploited them with their wealth and their jewels. And you must have asked the same question. Can a country be a champion nation if it is not just? Can rulers be admirable rulers if they're not just? So what about your organizations? Can your organizations be great organizations if you're screaming off the profit, but you're not just with the people that actually work for you? So in many ways, when we talk about leadership of country, accept the fact that you are also effectively the champion leader of your organizations. And to what level do you hold yourself up as by the standards that you want to hold yourself up to a country? Because, you know, here's the thing, in sporting terms, and we all watch this, because we all follow different sports, because they just love sporting analogies. When your team is playing poorly, in South Africa, we have this thing where people do that. It's like, sub the guy, take him off, because you want better, isn't it? You demand better, you expect better. But here's the thing with you and your country. Do you know that unlike sport, where you get selected to play for your country, when it comes to all things of your nation, you are chosen to play for your country the day you are born. The moment you are born in that country, you're a member of that squad of 10 million, 20 million, 60 million, 100 million people. You can't opt out. You can't even opt in. It's been decreed, okay? So if you've got 11 players playing poorly, you want to sub all of them. But if you've got 100 million players in your team playing poorly, how do you sub all of them? So the challenge therefore for you is one thing saying, oh, the UAE, I want the UAE to be the best, or Pakistan to be the best, or Canada to be the best, or South Africa, or Ghana, or Nigeria. It's another thing not saying, but I'm in the team myself. And when I speak about my country, I can't separate me and my country. My country will succeed when I succeed. My country will fail when I fail. If I don't want to lift my game and 1 million people think like me, then my country will not lift its game. So I want you to think about that, those countries that you think are worthy of being champion nations. Then I want you to think about these champion people, because I thought of throwing it up to you, but I think I'm going to turn it around. I want you to tell me, who do you think in your spaces are people who are worthy of being called champion people? And what are the, so give me names, okay? And what are the people, what are the qualities they possess? So I've mentioned to you that Hawa Charfaray is, I think, certainly very much a champion, one of the champion people that I'm aware of, right? And sometimes champion people are famous, sometimes they're not that famous. But I want you to think about this. Who are the people that have the ability to replicate what they have to create other champions? Because champion people must build other champion people. So can you think about that and give me some answers? I want to read some thoughts from you, and then tell me the qualities that they have. Now, to get the champion nation that you need, it must start, and really when I say champion nation, you must think of your organization as well, because that link from top to bottom is there. You must have the desire to want it. You must want what I said. I want the UN Secretary General to deliver that trophy to my country. You must have that desire. You must have the vision of as to how it's going to happen. You must have a plan. You must have a strategy. You must be able to implement. You must be able to collaborate. It must become part of a national agenda. You need to influence the national agenda of your country. So to use the example of Dubai specifically, or the UAE in general, how can it be that a desert wasteland can then change completely? What happened to it? What happened to that fishing village? How did the vision and dreams of one person have an impact on a majority of people so that they all plug in to this new DNA? Because if that doesn't happen, you ain't going to get it. And then that point about the USP, the unique selling point. Now, you need to make this call. You win, your country wins, you win, right? But here's another point, and I want you just to throw up that slide, Hawa, about the nations, right? That the challenge to all of us now, around the slide around champion world, okay, because I want people to focus on that. One thing is being, and the slide just before that, around champion world, the one thing is being a champion for yourself and your country. But there's another thing, and COVID-19 again is so relevant to us. Why can't we, as every individual, as every citizen of the world, connect and plug into this concept of champion people and then build champion nations? And if we get all that right, we then will have this champion world, because champion people, champion nations, champion world. We've all seen, because of COVID-19, how we're suddenly so concerned about what happens in Italy and their death rate and their infection rate, and what happens in India and their death and infection rate, or New Zealand and what happens there, and the USA. But if we can only do that every single day of our lives for all countries of the world, all of the time, then we're not just moving from a champion nation, we're then moving to this concept of a champion world. And I hope that it's a concept that I can impress on you. Come on, guys, let us build a champion world. And if you like that, a thumbs up would be great. It's a challenge, because the truth is, if I gave the example of us, of 11 players playing in a team, it's their responsibility. If 50 million people play in one country, it's their responsibility. If 1 billion people or 2 billion people represent planet Earth, it's our responsibility to build a champion world. To borrow a phrase, and I just want to use an Islamic example because it's relevant. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, has been quoted in the Holy Quran as being a mercy unto the worlds, meaning that his mission has to be merciful and impact on the whole world. Now, whatever your religious faith, be it Christianity or Islam or Hinduism or Judaism or Rastafaris, whatever, that concept of you being a mercy unto the world is important, because it's not just about profit taking. Follow the prophets, whichever religion you follow, the P-R-O-P-H-E-T prophets, to understand where your profits, as in P-R-O-F-I-T, must be generated. So yeah, the challenge is, let's build the champion world, okay? And I'm going to throw up these slides, the champion people, the 1 to 5. Hawa, if you can assist me with that, because I want you to take pictures of those slides, screen grabs if you can, and the other of the champion nation, because I want you not just commenting now, but when you go back, when you're done today, outside of Mother's Day, write it down. Which are the champion people in your country, in your space? Which countries are the champion nations? What are the qualities of those champion people? And what are the qualities of a champion nation? If you can do all of that, that would be great. And I'll leave you with one thought now before I want to engage you further. If there's one thing I want to leave you with, is to emphasize this point. Champion people build champion nations. My challenge to you is this. So, question, are you one of your country's champion people? Are you? Can you think about that? Okay, I'll leave it at that for now. I'll take your questions. I want to just thank you for giving of your time up to now. Feel free to engage me, and I look forward to further questions.
Ashraf, Jazakallah Khair, thank you so much. That was amazing. In fact, I don't even have words. You've just hit the nail on the head of what we as individuals need to be able to listen and remind ourselves of, because it takes away the blame game, doesn't it? You know, it's government's issue, it's our parents' issue. I behave the way I do because of the way I was brought up. It's always passing the buck. Here's our chance to become champions by taking complete ownership and responsibility. I can't agree more with everything that you've said. So dynamic. Ladies and gents, I would like to open up the lines. We've got approximately 6 to 7 minutes. I would like people to, Ermal, if we can start opening the lines. There's lots of comments going on in the chat line. There's a lot of people who agrees with a lot of the things that you've said, coming up with ideas in terms of starting with parenting, where we can actually then look at where building the champion nation comes from. So, ladies and gents, anyone with a question, please raise your hand. You are unmuted. If you need to ask a question or even a comment or just join in the conversation, here's our chance to really be true champions, ladies and gents. So let's hear your thoughts. Lines are open. Anybody has a question or a comment, please unmute yourself or raise your hand, and we'll make sure that you're definitely unmuted. Questions, comments? Thank you, Khalid. Absolutely, Shanta. So come on, ladies and gents, let's hear you. I know you're all probably still in your nice PJs. You don't need to put your camera on, but put your sound on. It will be fantastic to actually hear your voice. I hear somebody's voice coming through. Who would like to say hello?
It was me, actually, Ms. Hawa.
Okay, Armal, any comments? There's a question from Nasira. Ashraf, what do you think has been the lesson learned during COVID-19 as a nation?
I think, thanks for that. I think the lesson learned is you have a plan, but nature, God, other factors have come into play to have a bigger plan. And the big lesson for me is how quickly, because it's been swift, isn't it? How quickly the best laid plans of the world, not just of you, but the world has been set aside. It's been disrupted. So that's lesson one. Lesson two for me has been the need to collaborate. And it's something I've said before, but I'll emphasize it. That one has been disruption, but the other plan is the notion that we are all in a boat and we are rowing in a boat in really stormy waters. And we all we need to get to the shore safely. And for that to happen, we need to be rowing in harmony, in unison, in the same direction. That for me, and you can apply that image to anything you do in your space and all the capitals of the world, the need to collaborate to thwart off this enemy called COVID-19 for me is the big lesson and the big takeout to learn, and then to apply that principle beyond COVID-19.
Absolutely, well said. Nazra, I hope that answers your question. Buyani, I see that you've had your hand raised. If you'd like to unmute yourself, you're welcome to ask the question, Buyani. While you're doing that, Danisha, you also have your hand raised. Would you like to have a question or a comment? Please unmute yourself. If you aren't able to, I have sent unmute requests to you, just to make sure. Yes. Danisha? Okay, Biyani.
Hi, Hawa.
Yes. Hi, yes.
Sorry, it's Sumaya.
Hi, Sumaya.
How are you? Thank you so much for this amazing platform. Thank you, Ashraf. I mean, you were really a brilliant speaker. You can really captivate an audience. I mean, the two of you together are phenomenal. I think you really motivated all of us. It's brilliant listening to you. Really amazing. I think you motivated all of us, and there's a lot of, especially in the chat as well, a lot of people have a lot of amazing ideas. It's true, it does start with the individual. It starts with one person, and then you build. So it starts at home, it starts with your children and your community, and then it'll grow. It's like that story of the person who puts the starfish back on the beach. I don't know if you know that story. I can't remember the exact story, but every day these starfish get washed up on the beach, and then someone goes and they pick it up and they throw them back in one by one. And there's thousands of them, and someone says to the person who's throwing them back, but you're wasting your time. Why are you doing that? It's just gonna wash back up again the next day. And I think they answer, but it made a difference to that one starfish. So if we can make a difference to one more person, and slowly, I think it will build until eventually we reach nationwide and hopefully a global-wide champion.
Well, I mean, thanks for the kind words. Firstly, Sumaya, most appreciated. And I mean, and this is the point. You know, one can receive that with humility, and I do thank you for that. But also, one would like to think one wants to receive that sort of feedback with increased inspiration to say, but that's what we need to be pitching at in everything we do. So I'm not the best medical doctor, but there's somebody who's a medical doctor maybe watching us. For goodness sake, be the very best you can be. I'm not the best teacher, but somebody certainly can do just that. So that's the point, right? And the point about the shellfish is important, because often we say it begins with one person, but you know, if you look at the history of the world, right, it's incredible. It sounds so ridiculous. It sounds like a joke, but it's true. It's incredible how one person's inspiration can change the destiny of people. And for many people who are religious who are watching us right now, they know the examples. The Old Testament, the New Testament, the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran is awash with that sort of thing. It calls on these narratives, okay? But from a business point of view, we see that with I'm a big football fan, a big Manchester United fan. One person, one coach, Alex Ferguson, changed the destiny of a football club. I've already given the example of Apple and what happened to them. There are examples of that. So on the one hand, there's the need to be collective, because collective ultimately is what you need to galvanize, okay? But it really does come with one person. So that is, you know, why maybe the one point I haven't emphasized enough. I think in schools, besides teaching children rote learning and the skills they need to learn, the one skill that we absolutely have got to inculcate in people is the ability to have a broad global impact vision in our lives, because when that happens, you will be, to quote what I said earlier, you will be replicating a mercy unto the world.
Absolutely, well said, Ashraf. Huyani, you have a question. I see your hand, and I see that you've unmuted.
Thank you very much. My contribution really is related to what Ashraf has spoken to. The build-up from person to family to society to nation to the world. And I think that's most vital for us to be able to go into. And I thought it would be useful for us to be able to think right about now, as we have the COVID-19 story pretty much grabbing all headlines everywhere. Just to pull back to way back 1962, something happened to Martin Luther King Jr. Somebody came through and just stabbed him. And one of the things that saved him, so that he only passed on with that assassin's bullet in 1969, was the fact that he did not sneeze. And I think it's a metaphor that I'd like us to be able to look into, not to sneeze on the idea of championship. Because too often we kind of like look at what's coming through to us and who is presenting it, and we have our own stories that say, no, I'd rather be able to listen to this from a political orientation and not from a broadcaster. And I'm delighted to be able to connect with Ashraf, because building a champion nation is a critical thing that we all need to be able to pursue. But the beautiful thing, of course, is how we take good care of ourselves individually. Because if I am not really taking good care of myself, what I do on the outside, when people begin to be able to tap in and check within my family, they begin to realize that I am a different person than I truly am. So if, I were to be out on a jog and I get to be knocked down, a whole lot of people are coming through and they're giving all these tributes, and the family say, who is that? It's important for us to be able to look into how we become champions of self and champions of family, champions of nation, and then champions of the globe. But also, I think one of the key points that Ashraf has highlighted was the importance of noting the interconnectedness as well as interest in what's happening around us. When we pay attention to what's going on in the Amazon jungle, for instance, and we think about that in relation to what's happening in Pofadder, and we think about how that is connecting to what's going on in the Waterberg area out in Limpopo, we are going to be able to be more cautious and conscious of what we are doing and think about its impact on others. And therefore, ideas such as what is being presented through today eloquently by Ashraf are things that we should really not be sneezing at, and it's something that we should really be holding our breath, taking on, allowing it to percolate inside of ourselves, and as a result of that, get to be able to look into what is it asking of me as a person? What can I do differently? What kind of people can I present? Thank you very much.
Absolutely, Buyani. Thank you so much. Ashraf, your comment. Those of you, I see your hands are being raised. Shanta, I see you. Danisha, I see you. I will be taking your question shortly. And also, I see that we have Shakira, Rahim, and Saleh. So 3 more questions coming your way, Ashraf. Those of you, please just bear with us. I know there's some questions, and I'm sure you'll benefit from those questions and answer. Thanks. Ashraf?
Well, thanks for that, Buyani. Buyani is a great friend of mine, and how about we literally on the same WhatsApp group?
Yes, absolutely.
You know that from breakthrough development, by the way, just so that people know that. Buyani, I mean, your points are absolutely valid. It's something we've chatted about before. That yes, you need to champion yourself or be champion of self, and then champion of your family, and then so on. But that point about interconnectedness is important. But the point about Martin Luther King that you said is critical. Let's not scoff at something that, an idea that germinates at a certain time. Because even just talking about Martin's famous speech, I have a dream, right? And interestingly enough, if you tuned in a bit late, Buyani, that's the first thing I said. I have a dream. I have a dream to turn South Africa into a champion nation. Don't underestimate the power of these words. They have this incredible power to inspire. They don't happen in a week, they could happen in a year, but they can absolutely inspire. I will just say this much as well, Hawa, that yes, I alluded to the Champion South Africa podcast and YouTube channels that will likely be launched this coming week, and the Ashraf Garda podcast and YouTube that's up already today, by the way. But I've already chatted to Buyani separately. I've chatted to Buyani, and he's one of the first guests around the Champion South Africa about what constitutes a champion nation. So please, when it's up in a few days' time, watch out for it. But Buyani is a wise man, and this is the other point, that I think I know a thing or two, but you must not be that confident that you shut off wisdom from others who clearly have wisdom in abundance, and Buyani does just have that.
Absolutely, Ashraf, and that's all about what the collaboration is for us to be able to learn from each other. Shanta, I see you've unmuted. I'll take your question now, and then we'll go to Shakira.
Thank you, Hawa. Can you hear me? Am I all clear?
Perfect.
Okay.
Thanks.
Ashraf and Buyani, you spoke to something, you mentioned Martin Luther King, and I spend my Friday nights since the beginning of COVID chatting to Stanford University and Dr. Carlson. We're on the Gandhi King initiative, the international initiative. So you spoke to, just mentioning that in the beginning. Ashraf, I've been staring at the screen and my eyes are sore. That's how much you've captivated me, right? Okay.
As long as your eyes may be sore, but you still have vision, right? That's important.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, gentlemen, and the ladies involved. Ashraf, I've been looking at COVID-19 as a boot that was under the chair, and it gave the derriere a little nudge. And then as time went on, the derriere got kicked into action. So that's the way I'm viewing it. You mentioned about things starting at home. Ashraf, my view on this, and I did this in a personal development session with Hawa, is that as an individual, one needs to have a mission statement, a mission and a vision. It's useless going out there and trying to change the world if you don't assess yourself continuously, right? I've also considered lifelong learning, which is essential, and I see you've brought that up. May I just throw something out at you? Looking at all of this from the ecological perspective, what is your point? You know, what is your take on this from the ecological perspective and with sustainable development, etc.? How do we bring people in a country or in countries across the world that are having problems with sustainable development during this time? How do we get them to become champion people, Ashraf?
Well, I think that's a given, right? Your points are particularly important. That's point one. Point two about, I think, personal mission statements and then organizational mission statements. I think people have it already. Some people have organizations, personal, not enough. But I think the challenge, I'll go back to my original point. When you win, your country wins. What I'd like to see in people's individual mission statements is the link between their mission statement, their organization that it represents, mission statement, and the country's mission statement. There must be a link to that. Because when that happens, then everybody is aligned. So I use that analogy of everybody playing in the same cricket team. So 100 million people needs to be playing in the same team. Otherwise, you are in a disconnect. So you would have a person who may be a big business person, and his or her goal is to earn profits, but profits at the expense of exploiting people, which would be contrary to the norms and the morality of that country or the constitution and to where that country is going. So you would have people, you know, building profit and paying taxes based on their profit, but at the same time damaging the environment, for example. And you know, the issues of yes, the ozone is a debate that's been almost put off for the last few weeks because of COVID-19. You and I know it's a massive issue as well. I think that this reboot that we speak about in terms of the world, I'd like to see not just political leaders. I genuinely want to see religious leaders from across the faiths taking up the type of leadership that is required right now, not just to save lives, but to propel us into a new way of thinking, not in isolation, but thinking around interconnectedness. So it's one thing, you know, being religious privately, but it's another thing expressing your faith and your morality and your want to do good in a way that your country and your community benefits as well, because I think that has to happen. And for a long time recent times, there's been this disconnect between the state having their own rules, you having your own rules, the church or the faith or the mosque or the mandir that you go to having their own rules, and everybody is operating in silos. And when that happens, we then show out a vulnerability, because to use again the example of COVID-19, when COVID-19 affects people, there needs to be an antibody to fight that the disease, right? So when other foreign ailments like poverty affects countries, if we don't have this alignment that we're not providing the antibodies, and we're allowing a ridiculous scenario of extremes. And I look at just two countries, South Africa and India, for example, pockets of extreme wealth amongst the highest standards in the world of living, but mountains of poverty. And how can it ever be okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashraf. We have another question from Shakira and one more from Rashid. So Shakira, if you can go first, you've got your line unmuted.
Thank you so much, Hawa, and thank you to Orbrix and to Ashraf this morning for an insightful talk. I listened to both Hawa and Ashraf quite a few times before, and I always find it impactful, and it gives me a lot to take away and implement in my life. And I've been taking a lot of copious notes from Orbrix all through your courses. I've been reviewing them, and I truly believe that everything that, we're attending a lot of online meetings and webinars, but it's only beneficial if put into action. So my question to you, Ashraf, is how do we keep this momentum going? You've truly inspired everyone from your feedback on the chats and from, all the comments that have been made. How do we pay this forward? I personally follow your Instagram page. I'm very inspired by the case studies you post there. Is there any way that we can connect with you after this? Do you have a newsletter? Or I don't know, what is your advice for paying this forward and keeping the momentum going? Let it not be a lesson lost, like that we just be inspired today and then it's gone.
Sure.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for that feedback. And I think you're right. It can't just be talk. There has to be action. So let's start at the very end, right? Firstly, anybody can drop me an email as a point of connection, right? Which is ashraf@championsouthafrica.co.za. It's all one word. Ashraf, ASHRAF, ashraf@championsouthafrica.co.za. That's point one. Then there's Champion South Africa and myself. Yes, I have a presence on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, and LinkedIn as well, right? That's number three. The Champion South Africa and Ashraf Garda, both podcast YouTubes launching this week. In fact, the Ashraf Garda one is out already. There's a fascinating chat that you can go to YouTube today that I interviewed Bonang Mohale, which many may know is stellar in terms of his work. Currently the chairman of Bidvest, also the former boss of the British South Africa, former chairman of Shell, really inspiring in terms of his thoughts. And then moving forward, okay, the rollout of these platforms now will mark the beginning of a point that was brought up earlier on, which is that we want to now get each one of the people who are interested in the vision of Champion South Africa, and by definition Champion World, right, to perhaps subscribe to like their own 10-point vision about what it takes to be a champion person or one of the champion people, and then to build a champion nation and champion world. So when you connect with me now, we'll start rolling out this movement of volunteers, of just, even if you did nothing else, but just simply commit to that and then exporting that philosophy to other people in the world. It would be a starting point. So if you can do that, but drop the email, but then I want to challenge all of you to say, write out a mission statement for yourself that talks about what does it take to build a champion nation? What does it take to become one of the champion people in your space? And then use that to encourage other people. And if you can share that with us on our platforms, then we would share that as well. So that hopefully is one simple, small step on a long journey to a champion nation and to a champion world.
Absolutely, Ashraf, and I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of becoming purposeful. Something I started off my session with is that how do we become consciously purposeful? And the way to do that is to form these collaborations that you're actually talking about right now. So Admiral will put your email address in the chat for everyone to be able to take it down as well, so that you can connect with him. Also, just bear in mind that, the groups that Ashraf has created has become really purposeful for all of us. He's got this innovation group that's going on fantastically, where people are actually innovating ideas around COVID and everything else which is, relevant to what there is. Example, he's got something which is, and correct me on the words, Ashraf, but it's adopt a family, if I'm not mistaken, or champion a family. Correct me. It's not adopt a family. He termed it as champion a family, and he's running this entire process forward. And that's part of people collaborating during COVID in order to champion a family forward for those families that are actually struggling at the moment. So absolutely on point.
Yeah, let me touch on that. So
as well, yes.
The concept is to adopt a family during COVID-19. Yes. The word adopt, because we just felt it can be too literal about like you taking over the family, and we don't want to do that. But in effect, it is champion a family for people yes, I'm saying South Africa, but the reality is for all over the world in terms of providing relief. So it's one to make direct, we talk about business, foreign direct investment. So what about a direct investment in someone who is poverty stricken because of COVID-19, and then to support them not just in money, but also support them mentally and emotionally and mentorship? Because for a person who's down and out, they can't even make the call for a job. You need to be able to assist them. I think it's really important. But I can suggest on that point, please follow not just me, but also follow Champion South Africa on Twitter, because I'd love to engage with all of you there. And Hawa, maybe another suggestion. You have you have a group set up, I think, on LinkedIn specifically, right? Well, what about creating a page even today based on us talking about a champion nation, or even I maybe create one myself, and then some of us may want to argue certain points beyond this. I'd be very happy to do that on both pages. I think it'd be fantastic.
Absolutely, I agree. I think we'll do that definitely from our side, and also on our Staying Virtually Live people that are here will definitely be able to do that. So Rashid is unmuted himself, so I'm going to ask him to ask a question, and then we have our last question from Claire.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum, Ashraf.
Walaikum salam. Good talking to you, Rashid.
Yeah, and I look and talking to you, you always touch the heart. So shukr for that, and you touched my heart today. And I'd just like to, on your point on being a mercy to people, and you've taken the example of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And what I try and live for every day is my heart, and to do that is my heart at peace or is my heart at war? And I can only be a mercy, and I can only be good to the people and to the nation and to the country is if my heart is at peace. And I have to move away from the heart at war to a heart at peace. So I try to do that every day, and something simple that I do, and I believe just giving a smile to another person is charity. And I try to do that. I mean, if I go to a pick and pay store and I find the teller is stressed out, and just to be fun, I come say, the manager told me, you must give me a 10% discount. And she looks at me and says, are you crazy? I said, you know, the manager said you have to give me a 10% discount. And she starts laughing. I said, okay, thank you. At least you laughed. You know, and if you reflect on your day today, you'll say there was one crazy customer that made me laugh. And that is, for me, charity. And that is what I try to do every day. So just to conclude is, for you to move forward, you have to have a heart of peace and not a heart of war.
Well, I think it's beautifully expressed. I want to have a heart of peace, not of war. Now, I want to ask you, Rashid, is that your insight, or are you quoting somebody else? And I'll tell you why I'm asking that, because I want to quote you. I need to quote that. I think it is such an important point to bring up. Have a heart of war. So answer?
Yeah, I mean, there's one book in my life that inspired me and changed the way I think, was the book called Anatomy of Peace. It's one of the most phenomenal books that I've come across. It's not actually a read, it's actually a study. And it's by the Orbrix Institute. And that I read this book a few years ago, and I try and implement that every day. Try to make my heart at peace. So if I'm in conflict with something and I look at it and come say, hold on, am I reacting from a heart of war, or am I reacting from a heart of peace?
Oh, beautiful.
And if I change that, then I have to still deal with the conflict, but I deal with it in a different way. I deal with it, my words are different. My attitude is different. So even if I'm angry, but the words come out from love, because my heart is at peace.
Okay, why are you not presenting? I don't know. We'll have to chat to Harvard about that, because I think that's such an important point that you brought up. And I'd like to read the book. So maybe if you can post it again and tag all of us on your social media platforms, I think it's worth a read. The Heart of Peace, not a Heart of War. Here's the point, Rashid. Thanks for that. Here's the point.
We have one more question. Ashraf, just as you're concluding that, we have a question from Claire. So Claire, don't go away. I will take your question. Sorry, Ashraf.
Here's the point, picking up on what Rashid said about assisting people. So, look, we all have different religious persuasions, and this is, I want to just draw on this example because I'm of the Muslim faith. But I mean, really, honestly, others can bring up whatever they have, and that's great. Okay, so under this concept of like champion a family, and those that follow a certain place will understand this, because it's a fascinating story. When the people of Mecca under the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when they migrated from Mecca to Medina 1441 years ago, right? They were refugees. So maybe point one, they were refugees, right? When they got there, they had nothing. They gave up everything they had in the fear of Mecca, for the safety of Medina. And the people, the Madanites, took them in and brought them home. So this concept of looking after refugees, looking after the vulnerable, is an Islamic concept. It's been practiced, number one. It was repeated, by the way, with the people of Abyssinia, modern-day Ethiopia, where persecuted Muslims came to Abyssinia, and the king at that time said, you are free to reside here for the remainder of your life. So for those of us who want to shun off refugees as like, you know what, they're just coming to make my country dirty, just think again about what are you emulating in doing just that. Are you coming from a heart of peace or a heart of war? You see, Rashid, I'm learning very, very fast, okay? But in the Medina example, one is they were taken in. Then the advice given by the Prophet Muhammad was this, was, if you are able to, can you share in your wealth? The people of Medina who have, can you share in your wealth with the people who do not have? Okay? Be the helpers of God in doing that. Now, my question to all of you is, we all gloat about prophets from whichever space they come from, Hindu leaders and Christian leaders and Muslim and Jewish leaders, it was in those days. But isn't the plan then to emulate them? So if the plan is to emulate, and we look at that example where the people of Medina helped the people of Mecca, my question to all of you today, particularly around COVID-19, what's the modern day example of giving of your wealth to assist those who are effectively vulnerable in society today? Now, whether it's money or whether it's skills, are you doing that? Are you able to do that? And then if you're not doing that, then how is it that you gloat to other people, for example, about how wonderful that example was in Medina, but then we're not willing to emulate that ourselves? Just something to consider.
Absolutely. So, Claire, I have unmuted you, but just before you take over, for those of you who don't know, Rashid is also my life partner, my business partner, but more importantly, he's been the pillar behind my success and my growth. So they say normally behind every successful man, there's a woman. In my case, my success and my journey has been truly a grateful one because I have Rashid in my life. So, now you understand why his thinking has had such a huge influence on me. So, Rashid, thank you very much for that. Claire, all over to you.
Hi, Ashraf. A question more around COVID and the work situation and the huge disruption, but on a positive note. I've seen huge disruption in the workforce as people now are working from home. And everyone's talking about the job losses, which I do believe are there, and the reduction in salary because businesses aren't doing well. But a question I have, and whether I'm thinking correctly, it has also created huge opportunities. For example, just in the property market, and I was doing some work with a real estate agent business, everything's gone virtual now. So we have virtual valuations, we have virtual show houses. All of a sudden, the videographer has really become important. A digital strategist has been employed. Digital content, digital planning is important. You know, even within the traditional sort of marketing sphere within a big corporate like Woolworths, so much more work has resulted because they've had to reinvent their current plans. So I see this huge amount of busyness, where some people are just looking for entertainment and got nothing to do. Others are brimming over with work that needs to be done, and it has created new opportunities. Am I imagining it? Are these opportunities that aren't really going to monetize or go much further than COVID? Is there an opportunity for freelancers now, as all this capacity needs to be increased in pockets and people can't afford long-term employment?
Okay, Claire, thanks for that. So I think the answer, and of course, this is according to my insights, is that COVID-19 has forced an immediate change. From a health point of view, we know, which we're not going to go there, it's a different discussion, but it has certainly stopped the economies of the world dead in its tracks. And we know it can't continue, right? So it's a difficult one between saving lives and saving the economy. So we know it can't, even in South Africa, it can't continue. Now, in the meantime, it's forced some people to take action immediately. Many people have been dwelling in negativity, and I'm not disregarding them. I think one can empathize because we don't know what people are thinking. It is an incredibly difficult time in the world, right? So there are people who are dwelling on that and like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? But there are many others who have cottoned on very, very quickly to a whole new world. Now, you mentioned Woolworths, when I know you do lots of work with them around innovation. That's great. We had Ahmed from the UAE as a guest here last week, and he, as a business person, was like, if you're not online, you're just not anywhere, right? And it was very clear about it. Hawa's virtually live conferences, seminars or webinars that are taking place now are a manifestation of that already. Whether they then monetize would be the next step, but it's a great start. And the next point is, I had a chat with Arthur Goldstock, who South Africans will know is very much a tech geek of note, a few days ago. And Arthur's like saying, Ashraf, I have never been as busy in my life at the moment. It's almost like I needed the world to catch up to my thinking, because he's a tech geek. And the challenge there for all of us is, here's it, when we had horse and cart and somebody motorized, it needed a disruption, and then people moved to small cars, okay? Then from small cars to mass manufactured cars. Then somebody came up with the idea of a plane, then it became mass manufactured, or trains, for example. Then, of course, we know in today's world, it's not just cars or ordinary taxis, it became an Uber, right? And so on. Or landline phones, or no phones to landline phones to mobile phones, right? So the world will move on. Whether you're going to move on with the world is the challenge for you, not the challenge for the world. So my advice to myself, with all the fears and anxieties that I feel right now, and my advice to everybody watching us right now is like, outside the issues of safety and the absolute current vulnerabilities of your job situation, which must be there, spend some time watching things like Virtually Live right now, but spend some time doing other things and say, hold it, I need to tweak, not totally reinvent, but tweak myself, and tweak myself like sharp in South African speak, tweak myself fast so that I can move on to a whole new world. Because we know from the taxi drivers that complained about the Uber drivers, it didn't stop the wave of Uber. From the aeroplanes that knocked out land travel, it didn't stop the aeroplanes traveling. So you're going to get criticism, you're going to get people who are mocking it about being too innovative, but you have to embrace it. So for people like myself who've done lots of public speaking, if it means maybe the new world is to embrace this new way of speaking because I have a sense that large gatherings are going to be out for a while, maybe gatherings of 50 may be possible. Well, Ashraf, and I'm talking to myself here, note to me, either you say, no, I only do it the real way or nothing, or you say, for goodness sake, move with the times, because the new time has arrived now. And I think that principle can be applied to everything and everybody in your own economies.
Thank you. And then just to say, I totally agree that we need a follow-up on this, because obviously we attend something like this, it's very inspirational, but really taking it to the next level is always the proof of the pudding. So I like the idea of a page somewhere, something that we can check in, perhaps examples of some people that have worked on their mission that they're prepared to share, and let's have a follow-up session at some stage. Thank you.
I think you're right. I think you're spot on, but maybe as a starting point, besides Hawa's details, just ashraf@championsouthafrica.coza.
Yes.
But I'll create some forum. I think it's important.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll definitely do that, Claire, and there will be some follow-up sessions as well. But just to summarize what you've also said is, just last week I did a session in terms of the strategies of business within current COVID and post-COVID, and this applies to individuals as well. And there were three main strategies to summarize. One is same products, but different infrastructure, which is what you're talking about right now, is we're doing the same thing, but we're finding a different medium to be able to do it. The second is different products, same infrastructure. So those of you who can't function within your environment at the moment in your products that is not selling because it's perhaps maybe a product that isn't going to sell now in COVID, then look at a different use a different product but in your same infrastructure. And the third strategy we also looked at was same products, but of course looking at collaborating with different infrastructures. An example of that was Nike went online and they didn't have enough people to be able to deliver the stuff online. So they collaborated with a company who lift for you, whose drivers and cars were standing because they couldn't actually do anything, and they utilized their drivers and their cars to be able to deliver without having to take more expense. So that is innovation on its own, completely innovation. So have a look at that strategies. That video clip will also be posted onto our website, and we will be having more of those sessions in terms of business strategies that can be utilized, which allows us to change. So absolutely great. Thank you very much.
And
Thank
Hawa,
you so much
Hawa,
for
just
sharing that.
picking up on that point, right?
Yes.
When companies are normal, they do slight innovations, but when countries and companies and civilizations are under threat, then
Yes.
there's a survival instinct that kicks in. And I'm going to suggest the points that Hawa's made now. At this point in time, there are no rules.
Yes,
We're in
absolutely.
survival mode. What we've done today, we've never done before. We've never presented like this before, right? And I had contemplated, by the way, should I stand? Because I was thinking about presenting the way I would present from the stage, okay? And I thought, okay, there could be some technical issues, just leave that alone. But the point is, what I'm not doing today, I could do tomorrow. There are no rules. Because why? We're all in survival mode. We are looking at different ways to stay alive.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. And who knows, within a week we'll be standing. I mean, I'm considering that for our summit that we're having, because we're having guest speakers coming in from all over the world, and I'm actually asking them to have a podium to be able to stand from. So we're testing it, and you're right, we're thinking about it now, but who knows, within a week, 2 weeks, it might be a total reality. So let's start to think outside the box. Ladies and gents, I know we'd love to have this program to continue, but I think we've taken up a lot of Ashraf's time and expertise. And Ashraf, this is amazing. We still have a full room, and it's almost 33 minutes past the time that we're actually supposed to have completed. So it just shows that you've kept people really engrossed and entitled. So without further ado, ladies and gents, I'd like to firstly say thank you very much. Biani, I see your hand is still up. I'm not sure. Do you have another question you'd like to share or a comment just before we close off, as I'm closing now? If not, yes?
Thank
Biani?
you. Well, you're pretty kind. Thank you very much for that opportunity. Essentially, what I wanted us to be able to look into, and Ashraf is leading us in that direction, the importance of having a clear mission stands out as the most critical thing. Because if you do not have a personal mission, nothing you do has any value. In fact, having a mission gives you permission to get up in the morning and do the things that matter. So just for me, a visual that helps me to be able to orientate myself around what mission I pursue is that it has to link that which I love, who I love, what it is that I'm seeking to be able to live up to, matching that to the real needs that are there, closest to me, further away, but those will enable me to be impactful. Because eventually when people give tributes, they give tributes because there is a contribution that we have made. That's a critical thing. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely, Biani. Thank you so much. And that's all about living that life consciously purposeful, because when you are purposeful in terms of your vision and your mission, but then it's not just putting it and taking it and storing it in file 13, isn't it? It's more about actually living it as a reality every single day, because it reminds you. And in our line of work, that's what we call a neurological alignment, aligning your thoughts together with the rest of your body so that you become purposefully around it. Ashraf, thank you very much. May Allah reward you. May you grow from strength to strength, inshallah. And let us see you on many more platforms. And I look forward to following you on all of your platforms, especially looking forward to all the podcasts that are coming up. I watched the first one with yourself and Buyani, and I was very impressed. So thank you very much for all that you have done and for that you have given towards the community here today. We will definitely be having follow-ups on these. I'll be chatting to Ashraf around that, but also more importantly, watch out as well for his other programs and sessions that we will be running shortly in the first week of June. We thought we'll give it a break. We were supposed to run it in this week, but we thought we'll give it a bit of a break in between so people can absorb this information, apply this information before we move on to the very next thing. So please watch out for our Facebook ads together with our WhatsApp ads that will be coming your way. And if you'd like to be added to our group, please just put your email address in here so that we can actually add you to our mailing list. Ashraf, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you again, and thank you for your time and effort especially, and maybe a huge thank you to Jamila, who has allowed you to be able to come out of the box, especially since it's been Mother's Day and you're supposed to be spending this time with her and the family, and we humbly thank you for that. To all our audience, you have been amazing. This discussion has been fantastic. It has been recorded. We will be finalizing the editing within a day or two, and we'll definitely start posting, and you will each get the link to the post, a YouTube post, by the end of the week. Thank you very much.
I'm raising my hands because it's just the last bit. Yes, Camilla certainly helped to manage the technical point, and she sends her regards as well. But I want to just say to all of you, certainly Hawa, Rashid, etc. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to have a seat at the front table. But that's really what I have right now. And this my final thought to the many people who set up to watch right through it at whatever inconvenience it's been. Right. Thank you for that. It really matters because we can only connect with people when we have people who have an ear for us, who are willing to want to hear what we have to say. So thank you for giving off your time. Please engage with us on other platforms, particularly on social media. But here's the final point. I've always felt when you go to an event, when you're watching somebody or when you're listening, and when you get an opportunity to say something, for goodness sake, don't waste it. Be profound about a comment or a question or an insight that you want to share with people. And for that, I think today I'm very privileged that I've hopefully been able to do just that.
Thank you, Ashraf. Thank you to the rest of the audience for your time. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and please keep in touch. Watch out for our different sessions we're running. Tomorrow, we actually tackle crisis management, run by our Dr. Jeff from France, who'll be taking us through how do we manage crises within an organization and within a country. So please feel free to watch that as we go through that session tomorrow. Thank you very much, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. Goodbye. And I wouldn't be South African, as I always say, if I didn't say totsins and hamagashle. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.